great that that was his takeaway, that it was fun. He seemed really relaxed, at least at the presser up there. What was your first impression of Kyler Murray last night, Steve?
A lot of the formation, a lot of the plays we're very, very familiar with. They have changed either their offense as far as what they're presenting and what they're going to compared to what Cliff and what Kyler is used to run in college. And you can see from Baker Mayfield, one thing that Cleveland did that really gave Baker an advantage, they put in some Lincoln Riley things from college. This, though, to me, because I wanted to see what is the air raid offense, who is Cliff Kingsbury as a coach, what they're going to try to do. But they put him in a good situation. They got the ball out of his hand very, very quick. The offensive line, we weren't able to take advantage of because they got some huge question marks there. So 1, 2, 3 in the gun. I think it's important people know that he's going to be more effectively playing in the gun at that height. Not 100%, but it's going to be in the 90% as far as him being in shotgun. They ran one RPO where he had the option to either give it to the back, throw the swing, or run it. He was utilizing his feet only to be able to throw the ball. He should have had a perfect night, but wide receiver stepped out of bounds. So an illegal touch on the incompletion, not his fault. But you can see from the film, he can flat sling it. 1, 2, 3, out, deep out to the left. 1, 2, 3, oh, my number one's not there. He gets down to the back. And also the play calling was very understandable for a rookie quarterback. Let's get him successful, quick. Let's run some screen passes, get him some completions, because their first possession, he was backed up to the goal line, 2-yard line. That's the hardest way to start an offensive series. They were still aggressive enough, believed in him enough. He drove them down, got a couple first downs, and then they turned it over on downs, and that was the night. But for the first pick in the draft, I thought he did a good job. I thought Cliff Kingsbury did a good job of scheming to get him through the number of plays that he was going to play.
You keyed on what I thought was the most important part of it, was his first touch in an NFL game, albeit a preseason game, is inside his own 5-yard line. And they have him in the shotgun, and he ends up, you talked yesterday about how one of the tougher things college to pro for a lot of different reasons, but is the narrower hash marks. He's right in the middle of the field, and they trust him to throw a deep out to the sideline to get him a breathing room and a first down, and that arm strength was right there.
Yeah. When I say the hash marks, I'm only talking about for the coaches and the scheme. I'm not talking about the guys who can throw. All right. In college, the guys who can't throw, you're able to exploit them because they're not going to throw to the field. So there's not an advantage or disadvantage for him because of his skill, but based on the offense and how they call plays.
So hash marks notwithstanding, that is, this is a big-time NFL throw. The deep out to the sideline is a big-time NFL throw, and so his first throw was a tough one, and then you saw an easy pass for a first down on a second one. His third pass, he rolls out to the right and he finds someone. You mentioned the RPO, where he ends up throwing it almost horizontally to Larry Fitzgerald.
Yes.
I don't know if it was the right decision or not, but it was an accurate pass.
It was the right decision because you don't want him running. In the game, you want him to be the triple threat, press the defense. In this time, you want him to get it to Fitzy. That's the part that I really enjoyed about that play.
Right, because in preseason game, you don't want your quarterback to take any hits if possible. And you mentioned the reason this drive didn't end in points was because they got the penalty on the one play because the receiver stepped out of bounds, and then Kyler got hit on a sack that knocked him out of field goal range. But he did everything you'd want him to do. He showed some escapability, but the escapability led to him throwing the ball, not trying to get yards with his feet. He had easy reads and some difficult throws. Like, as much as you can learn from one drive in one preseason game, Kyler Murray checked all the boxes you'd want to see.
And I asked you this morning, between the rookies that started yesterday, that played, Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins and Kyler, who was the most impressive? And right away you said Kyler Murray. What else do you want to see from him this preseason?
Well, you want him to keep growing. He's going to make some bad mistakes. But I like the fact of how they started. The foundation of this offense, if it is get the ball out of his hand, it's got a chance to be successful. One of the things about these offenses, that being Steve Spurrier, when he tried to bring his offense into the NFL, he didn't have flexibility. He was like, it's going to be my way. This is the scheme. There's not going to be any changes. Chip Kelly, he tried to run it that way. There's not going to be any changes, and both of them failed. If he has some flexibility, adopts NFL concepts, because you're going against NFL talent, NFL elite talent that can go sideline to sideline, it gives Kyler the best chance to be successful.
And last year, this was the worst offensive line in football. I understand they brought in some new people, so it won't be the same offensive line. But one of the reasons this offense was so bad last year was you had a terrible offensive line plus a quarterback that couldn't move around. Kyler again reminded you yesterday that even if the offensive line breaks down a bit, he can buy you a little extra time while keeping his eyes upfield to try to make productive plays. That's going to be important because even if the offensive line improves greatly, this isn't going to be a good offensive line this season. And so Kyler's going to have to be able to move around to keep himself upright.
All right, they all said the right things. Nick, what did you take away from Haskins' performance?
I think it's worthwhile, if you can, to go to NFL.com and watch the cut-up of every throw he made yesterday because I don't think the stat sheet did him justice. I watched online today every throw from all the young quarterbacks from preseason game 1. And Haskins, without any question, was asked to make the most difficult throws. He had the fewest easy open reads. I don't know if that was by design or if that's just because of what the Browns were able to do defensively. I thought his first throw of the game inside his own 10, a play-action rollout where he goes for 25 yards, was a really good throw. He made another really good throw up the sideline that the receiver ended up fumbling, and it ended that drive. Now, the 2 interceptions were bad. One was particularly bad, the one into double coverage that Greedy Williams got. But I thought he was better than the stat line showed. I thought he had some really solid throws. This one was obviously not one of them where he rushes the wheel route. But I don't think Haskins should be terribly discouraged by what happened yesterday because there were moments where you saw him make some of the better throws any of the young guys made last night.
Yeah, it's easy to explain the interception. The wheel route, he had a running back on a linebacker. He thought he was going to be able to loft it over the linebacker's head. But at this level, until you see it in the game, you don't realize guys can anticipate, linebackers can catch. And the defender for Cleveland, he's able to catch it and return it for a touchdown. But if he puts a little more air on it, the other throw down the seam, his fundamentals, he stepped into his throw, but the ball sailed on him. So it's not in the double coverage. They're playing 2-man. All right, they're playing a zone coverage. Greedy's just back there. He's not guarding that guy. He's guarding the guy outside. So those are things that are very, very correctable. But also, as the coach mentioned, they got to clean up their pass protection. If you start getting guys in your face, these balls start selling, you start misreading it. So this is all part of it. I don't mind guys throwing interceptions if you can explain the reason why and be able to correct them. But if you're trying to be a starter in this league, you can't turn the football over. The thing I said yesterday, you guys said, what do you want to see? I just want to see the mechanics. I want to see in and out of the huddle. I want to see a couple throws. Don't turn the ball over. Don't fumble. Don't give the defense an opportunity because the team, it's hard for the team. And this is not just Haskins. This is every quarterback. It's hard for a team to have confidence in a quarterback that puts the defense back onto the field. It's hard to like a guy. It's hard to follow a guy. So you can't turn the football over is what you have to be able to take from these preseason games.
Is it on the board that Dwayne Haskins can beat out Case Keenum for that?
I don't think he's going to start week 1. I would be shocked if he doesn't start at some point this season. In modern NFL, you draft a quarterback in the first round, they start that year. And I mean, it's not like he's behind an entrenched starter in Keenum or Colt McCoy. You mentioned the pass protection. He was under constant duress, and it came out yesterday. Trent Williams doesn't ever want to play for Washington again. It's no longer about wanting a new contract, reportedly. It's that he wants a trade. That's an all-pro left tackle that he is ostensibly not going to have the benefit of playing behind. Now, Cleveland's got a good front, and I know there were some backups in there by the time Haskins was playing, but he was constantly running for his life, took one big shot in the game. That didn't help him out either.
Jenna, this is what I know. Every team Case and Colt have been on, since they've been in the NFL, the team been looking for a starter. So Haskins should be starting. If he doesn't turn the ball over, he should be starting immediately. Because neither one of those guys are your starter. When you start the season with one of those guys, you know you're not making the playoffs. You know you're going to be drafted in the top 10. That's what typically has happened when those guys have been starters.
What did you make of Daniel Jones last night?
Well, he's had a good training camp. And then you could see it transferred over to the game. NFL offenses, they're not going to overwhelm him because being with Cutcliffe, the coach at Duke, that's what he runs. He's taught Peyton Manning. He's taught Eli Manning. He's a quarterback coach. Like, he's an offensive guru. So he is way up as far as a football IQ approaching the NFL. So that's a huge advantage. He's having a good camp. And Pat Shurmur, he put him in some things he was very, very comfortable. But he kept the starting offensive line in there after Eli. so the kid wouldn't get hit early and maybe get him spooked. So he had him in some good reads. Most of the NFL coaches last night, if they had a young quarterback in, you know what they did the first pass play? Play action. Give them something easy to trick the defense. Typically, play action is a better pass protection. Only put 2 or 3 guys out. That's what they did to get him started. He made a couple nice throws like Kyler, sideline outs, quick outs, had to make a quick decision. The touchdown, people will be looking at that thinking he made a great throw. Be like, oh, man, he fit that ball in there. Like, that receiver, that safety should have intercepted that ball. That ball should have not been thrown to him. And he was eyeballing him the whole time. So, great start by him. Be careful on the touchdown, because if you watch it, when he gets the snap of the ball, his head, they were in cover 2. That means split safeties. His head was on the safety and to the right side of the field. The safety should have been wider than the wide receiver, because he was only receiver to that side of the field. You don't have to worry, because the Jets had their backup secondary in there, mostly their backup defense. He's not an NFL safety, so don't look at that as if, oh, he made a great throw. Those are bad defenders out there. It was a ball that shouldn't have been thrown. 2 guys could have picked that ball off. So let's pump our brakes, so like the coach said.
I find that really interesting, because the first 4 passes.
What, did I know football?
No.
Oh.
That's what you saw there. Because the first 4 passes were all boom, boom, throw. Boom, like it was read, react.
The first one they threw down the field. That's when they ran the play action with the crosser.
Yep, and
to get him started.
And then after that, and to his credit, he completed them. They were on target. He didn't make any mistakes. But it's what I was talking about before, which is they had schemed it up to where he was going to have, relatively speaking, easy throws. When I was watching this live, I thought exactly what Chris said a lot of people thought. I thought he dropped this in the bucket. I thought this was right exactly where it needed to be. I know that watching the game, the game announcers, now they're going to be a little biased because we're in New York and we're hearing the New York announcers. They said
Carl
Banks, our friend Carl Banks. Well, they said something similar. It wasn't until you came in this morning that pointed out that the safety got turned around and had his back to the play the whole time that I saw what you were saying.
Yeah, if that's during the regular season, Jamal Adams picks that off and he might be making the tackle. One thing as an analyst, you have to be careful, because I've been covering the NFL draft for a long time. What you say about a player in college and in the draft, you have to put a check mark on that when they come into the pros, because they'll be in a different system, different environment, and they might have a skill set that this team is able to work with. And that's what I've been able to do. If I don't think a guy should be drafted as high, I don't use that in analyzing him.
Sure.
So I didn't look at that last night saying, you know something, the Giants should have had Haskins there, because it's going to be hard for you to evaluate players fairly if you continue to do that. You have to almost have a blank slate. They come into the league, what you saw compared to what they do. Barkley, I didn't see him at Penn State tote the ball 22, 25, 28 times. All the Penn State backs, for the most part, have been bust in the NFL. I thought he'd be good. I didn't think he was going to be an instant superstar. So it's not as if I missed on him. I adjusted. Once he got to the league, I was like, okay, let me adjust this. Okay. Don't hold against them what we saw in college and in the draft. You have to turn the page to be able to evaluate him, because Pat Shurmur is going to try to bring out the best in his ability. And last night, you could see some of the things why he was a first-round pick.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.